Coming up on The Breakdown, Trump gives up his blogging dream once he realized no one was actually reading it. 100 political science experts issue a grave warning. We'll talk with Lincoln Project co-founder Steve Schmidt about how we can fight back, plus the exclusive premiere of the latest Lincoln Project ad. We'll take your questions from Twitter. Use hashtag AskTheBreakdown. It all starts right now. Good evening and welcome to The Breakdown. I'm Tara Setmayer, and with me as always is my illustrious partner in crime, the Rick Wilson. Good evening, Rick.
Good evening, Tara. I haven't committed any crimes yet that I'll confess.
Yes, what kind of mischief are we going to get into tonight?
There are people who have fucked around that we'll find out.
I think so. And I think our audience is always waiting with bated breath to find out who that may be each evening, each show, because there's usually at least one. But before we get started with all of that, of course, if you have questions for us, please hashtag Ask the Breakdown, tweet them to us, and we will answer them for you later in the show. And our good friend and Lincoln Project co-founder Steve Schmidt will be joining us in just a little bit. And guess what's back, Rick? The old school voicemail. It's back. Yes, we are reintroducing our voicemail system. So please, please, please call us. There's the number, 855-518-1582. Keeping it old school because that's what we do around here and it keeps us kind of young. So call it, leave us a brief
very well
message
for me, but oh well.
It's all, age is nothing but a number. It's all in how you feel. It's all in your spirit.
That's what Matt Gaetz says.
Oh, nice. Ding. Oh my God, I teed that up. Perfect for you.
Too easily.
Too easily. So yeah, so call us, leave us a voicemail, and we'll play them later in the show too. Maybe not this show, I think next show. So anyway, Rick, we've got some headlines to break down, and this one is fun. It's so fun. It's really petty, but I'm here for all of it. Donald Trump's blog is no more. It has, as someone I know wrote a book that said everything Trump touches dies. That includes blogs. He is now not only a retiree in Florida and now summers in Jersey, but he is now a failed blogger. We can add that to his litany of failures in his life.
It is so delicious.
Isn't it?
Know, Brad Parscale and Jason Miller told him, "You'll have thousands, millions of people flocking to you to read your strange rants, your excrescences, your verbal diarrhea. They'll love it." And yet they loved it not in droves. It was a single digit sort of traffic there. Sorry, Donald.
Yes. My friend Eugene Scott, he tweeted yesterday, he said a Trump advisor told the Washington Post that the former president shut down his blog because he didn't like that his platform was being mocked and had so few readers. Well, guess what, Donald Trump? We will continue to mock you because that's what we do, because you deserve to be mocked because you're a fool. And no one is going to read anything because you're deplatformed. It's unbelievable. These people. Go ahead, Rick.
I mean, I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this, but this is also a commentary on the Trump demo was conditioned to pay attention to his tweets.
Mm-hmm.
They were conditioned to pay attention to the Fritos of communication, which were his tweets. And so they would pop down a delicious salty snack. They weren't going to go on there and read more than 10 words.
Right. And wash it down with a Mountain Dew, right? Some Fritos and wash it down with a Mountain Dew. And
breakfast
Jason
of champions.
Miller, right. That's right. Jason Miller, who, is a particularly despicable person and who we mock often on this program. He actually tweeted out on May 4th, all about how this was going to be like the greatest thing ever. And, right. And then that's how it's going now. 29 days later, it's done. The From the Desk of Donald Trump is done. And we had a funny graphic because people started, of course, making fun of what actually has lasted longer than Donald Trump's blog. And I think we have a list. Let's go through them because people are very funny. The Greek yogurt in my refrigerator. What else? Kim Kardashian's marriage to Chris Humphries. Oh my gosh, that's
Savage.
true. Yep. Rudy's hair
Rudy's
dye.
hair dye.
Cold hamburgers at the White House. Oh my God, that's hysterical. Yeah. Ted Cruz's defense of his wife. Yes.
Ooh, savage.
Nice. Do we have any more? Is that it? I think that's a good one to end on. Ted Cruz's defense of his wife.
Pretty solid,
Yes,
though.
it is. But you get the point. I mean, poor Donald Trump doesn't like to be mocked, and nobody's reading my blogs. Why? So of course they're making up for that by saying, "Oh no, we're taking it down because we're preparing for another social media platform." Right.
Yeah.
I guess we're going to get that at the same time that we get the
I
infrastructure
remember when
plan
Trump
and
was going to go to Parler. That was going to be the big thing for Parler. How'd that work out for you, Donald?
Right. And then he was supposed to start his own, remember? And then he found out how much it costs to maintain, and you actually have to spend money and invest in servers and maintenance and all of those things.
And of course, if you attract the Trump audience, you can't use like AWS Amazon servers. You have to use your own custom built hand built iron with these servers, and it just was never going to work out for him.
No, because that means he'd actually have to spend money, and all of his like Russian oligarch friends, they don't give a shit anymore. He's not in power, so they're not gonna spend their money on him. Yeah. So poor Whittle Donald. He still doesn't have anyone to listen to his musings. Ay. But here's the thing, though. Aren't we still waiting around for the MyPillow guy and his platform? Isn't he supposed to be starting some social media platform also?
It's supposed to come out any time now, and apparently he's guaranteeing free speech except any speech that disrespects Donald Trump or the MyPillow company or some sort of other hoo-ha. So
or Yahoo. Yeah, this guy, he doesn't seem to go away. And here's the thing, and if people who watch the show, they know this, I actually own 2 MyPillows, and I love them. Don't at me, people. I love my MyPillows. I bought them years ago before we knew that the guy was a batshit lunatic. So I'm not going to like burn my MyPillow now. I like it. I sleep on it every night, and I even travel with it. So I'm sorry. My husband doesn't like his, so I have 2 when I travel with him. But we like them. The money's already spent. Anyway, so even though we're having some fun with this is actually part of a much bigger problem. Because Donald Trump, even though he's been deplatformed, we know why, because of January 6th, and people are concerned that he's still going to foment the crazies and more violent insurrections possibly, or God knows what. But he's running around, Rick. Still, the Maggie Haberman story from the other day still has legs about Trump telling people that he's going to be reinstated in August. And then he also was talking about, it was confirmed by Charles Cook over at National Review, right? Talking about this. And this is absolute lunacy. Like Trump is obsessed with this idea that the MyPillow guy gave him, that he's going to be reinstated. Not only him, but David Perdue from Georgia.
Right.
And McSally out in Arizona. Why are they all together? What's the association? There's a recount going on. Yes, cyber ninjas out in Arizona is doing this fraudulent recount, this fraud. So he thinks that something's going to come from that. And then you have Georgia now that has agreed to do some type of other examination again. We talked about this on one of the other shows, how Brad Raffensperger decided that, we'll do one more audit because, just for transparency.
Because beating Trump's ass 8 times just wasn't enough, apparently, for them.
Apparently.
Tara, I will say this. The Maggie's reporting on this and then the Charles Cook story, they both had a very interesting sort of hitch in them. My theory of the case is this, that Trump himself is reaching out to reporters and trying to sell them on this. And his staff knows that he's doing this. And they are leaking all this out there. I think my theory of the case is Jason Miller is leaking this stuff out there so that Trump will hear people making fun of him for being completely batshit crazy. And so he won't go out at this rally on Friday, tomorrow at the rally, or is it Friday or Saturday?
I think it's
the
Saturday.
Rally in Saturday, you're right, yeah. the rally in North Carolina, he won't go completely batshit out there and tell the audience, I'll be president again in August, don't you worry. I mean, I think that there's a degree to which his own staff is sandbagging this because they know how flippin' crazy it sounds and how completely manic it sounds.
I mean, maybe. You're probably right, because knowing Jason Miller and the people that he's surrounded with, they do try and manage this as much as possible, because they're like, okay, how do we manage the crazy? But
Right.
you cannot manage Donald Trump. He's
No.
unmanageable. You cannot manage him. So they might have been trying the strategy, but do you really think that Donald Trump gives a shit whether people are, denying him or not? The more people say this is nuts, the more he's going to say it. He triples down on stuff. It takes a lot for him to say, all right, maybe I'm not going to do that now. Now he's like even more emboldened. Damn it, I am going to be reinstated. No one's going to tell me I'm not. You all are the ones that are crazy. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's going to stop him at all. I don't think it's going to stop him. Maybe it will for a couple days. He can't help himself.
Look, there's a whole genre of reporting in Washington, particularly prevalent in the 2017, 2018 window of Washington, D.C. reporters getting played by access journalism, moves by the Trump White House, where they would go out and write stories saying there's a process inside, there's sanity, it's just like a regular White House, except he's a little bit eccentric. That was a lie.
Right.
And people reporting it now that there's some sort of process or control, or they've got a shot collar on this guy, are either lying to you or protecting their sources in the Trump world. Which, there are still a few people that are well known to protect their Trump sources at the cost of their own credibility, reputation, honor, and integrity. But that is what it is. And,
that's right.
And, so that's why these people are doing this. That's my theory, why they're leaking it, because they don't want Donald Trump to seem as insane as he is. They want to keep the gravy train running instead of Trump being like locked in a padded cell with a drool bucket next to him.
Yeah, or locked in a cell behind bars. But the thing about this, though, they can try all they want, but this shit is nuts. Like, there is no reinstatement clause in the Constitution. There's literally nothing that exists even remotely close.
It's right after the unicorn clause. And, there is no such animal in the Constitution in any capacity. There's no redos. There's no reboots. Charles Cook was pleading with Republicans in the National Review article today to pay attention to the fact that this isn't just trolling or performative or pushing back against the libs or the media. This is pure fantasy, and it makes the party weaker by pursuing it because it is inevitably doomed to fail. There is no legal, political, constitutional, civil, traditional, normative force that allows you to do a redo and just reinstate Donald Trump as president.
Nothing. Like, hear us clearly. There is nothing that allows for this in a republic. Maybe in a banana republic, but not in a constitutional republic. That doesn't happen. Lincoln Project today released a rapid response ad in response to this little crazy idea by Donald Trump. Let's take a look.
We have new reporting from Maggie Haberman of the New York Times reporting that Donald Trump has been telling a number of people that he expects that he is going to be reinstated as president by August.
I don't know if he thinks it's a military coup that will get him there, like Mike Flynn is suggesting, or just enough cyber ninjas audits of enough states.
This is the exact language that incited January 6th. And this isn't just anyone. This is the former president who is still in control of the Republican Party.
Let me say something about this, Rick. We're making fun of this, right? The buffoonery is always delicious to make fun of, especially now that he's not in power anymore. But to Kate Baldwin's comment in that this is very serious, that this is the type of rhetoric that led to the insurrection on January 6th, she's not wrong. There is a really, really dangerous underpinning here that we cannot ignore, which was partially what Charles Cook was talking about as well. And every Republican, in my opinion, every elected Republican should be asked every day if they believe this. The leader of your party says that he will be reinstated extrajudicially, I guess, like under what grounds, I'm not sure, that he'll be reinstated as president of the United States in August. Do you believe that? And if yes, why? If not, then will you condemn it? Every journalist on Capitol Hill needs to ask every Republican they see that question. Force them to face it, because this is the leader of their party. This is who they're following. This guy.
Right. They should be at. Look, here's the other thing about Washington. In Washington, there's a political media culture that tries to treat both sides as the same, flip sides of an ideological coin. That's not the world we live in now.
Right. That's right.
And the necessity of penetrating this reality bubble around many of the Republican elected officials and their voters is one that reporters, in my opinion, should take more seriously and should pursue more vigorously.
Absolutely. And we're not the only ones that are sounding the alarm. Recently, experts, political science experts, over 100 of them warned about how dangerous this type of behavior from Trump is. And it's not the first time that we've seen this, right, Rick? I mean, during the election, we had generals come out and warn after what happened in Lafayette Square, which is highly unusual. We had national security experts come out and warn about how dangerous Donald Trump is and will be if he's reelected. And now we have democracy experts coming out warning and saying, listen, this is incredibly dangerous to our democracy. Trump, this behavior cannot be normalized, right? Because Republicans are normalizing it. And, this is something that a lot of people, I don't know, like we continue to talk about this and we keep beating this drum because maybe people will listen. And I think a lot of our supporters listen, but I don't know that people internalize how serious it really, really is, because certifying elections and respecting the peaceful transition of powers, that is the hallmark of our democracy. And without that, what do you have? You have an autocracy. And that's what these people want. Republicans have turned into the party of autocracy.
Well, anyway, let's move on to the next segment. We're going to keep beating on this particular horse.
No worries, Rick. You could have finished your thought now. There's no satellite that's going to cut us off. But
Yet.
No, yeah, I know, right? Well, anyway, we will continue this conversation actually, because in our next segment we have Steve Schmidt coming up to join us. Yes. So stay tuned. We'll be back right after the break.
America is the only country founded on an idea, the radical idea that citizens could govern themselves. It was called the American experiment because there was no reason to believe it would work. A republic, if you can keep it. Every generation has been called to defend and renew the promise of America. For some, it was on the battlefield. For others, it was on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Now, the battle has come to the steps of the Capitol itself. Democracy is under assault like no time since 1860. We have a choice. Look away or stand up and fight. It's not about conservative or liberal. It's about freedom versus autocracy. We didn't choose this moment, but history has chosen us. Which side are you on?
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
We will never forget them, nor the last time we saw them, as they slipped the surly bonds of earth to touch the face of God.
Those who are lost now, their legacy must be our lives.
I can hear you, and the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Amazing grace.
I am dispatching thousands and thousands of heavily armed soldiers. We dominate the streets.
I won't traffic in fear and division. I won't fan the flames of hate.
It's time to pick up our heads. Remember who we are. This is the United States of America.
Paid for by the Lincoln Project, which is responsible for the content of this advertising.
And welcome back to The Breakdown. Joining us now live is Lincoln Project co-founder and viewer favorite, Steve Schmidt. Steve, welcome.
Good to see
We're
you.
good, Steve. Yes, we had a delay for a second. Glad to see you, buddy. Lots to talk about tonight. And I know one of your favorite topics is to talk about the importance of protecting our democracy and why we should all care about it. On Tuesday's show, we talked about the threats to our democracy. We had Professor David Farris on with us. And from the January 6th insurrection to like what's going on in Texas, there's a lot going on that is happening in real time that I'm not sure Americans are really paying as much attention to because Donald Trump is not in office every day doing batshit crazy things in our faces, tweeting and, you know, doing all that stuff anymore. People are kind of getting back to their lives in some bit of normalcy. But meanwhile, while we're doing that, these things are still going on. The Republican Party is still engaging in really anti-democratic stuff. Talk about it a little bit. What are you thinking?
Sure. I'm going to pick up right where you were in the last segment on this, because I think this is the key point, and this drives me crazy about the coverage. So Maggie Haberman tweets, he's telling people, like, what people, right? Is he telling his driver? Is he telling his caddy, Don Jr., right? That's one thing, right? Right? That's trivia. That's gossip, right? Like, I don't really care about that. Or is he telling Kevin McCarthy? Right? Is he telling members of Congress and the Senate? I mean, who the hell is he telling? Right? And like, I think like we look at the deficiencies of political journalism in this era, right? And like, I think about journalism, and you think about John Miller, who then went on to the New York Police Department, I think as deputy commissioner for intelligence.
I know, John.
When that guy was ABC News, like he tracked down bin Laden in the cave in Afghanistan and interviewed him. Right, like you're like Clarissa Ward for like CNN, like, or Richard Engel on NBC. You're like, holy shit, these people are in Syria interviewing like the insurgent. How do you even do that? Right, like I'm serious. I want to know, and it really matters, because what matters here is this: clearly delusional and won't happen, and yet he remains the leader of America's first autocratic movement to have taken political power. It's now overtly more autocratic than it was even on January 6th. The democracy condition with Republicans has deteriorated. Adam Kitzinger talked about that tonight, though I disagree with the diagnosis that it was McCarthy's visit that brought Trump back to life, because Trump was never gone. Right? Trump has always been the leader. And we're in a new era in this country that requires people to wake up and face squarely a danger. At the core, right, why does democracy even matter, right? Starting there, right? All of the problems, right? There may be a better system, right? You know, maybe the 100 smartest people should run everything, right? Because we do have a lot of elected dipshits in our politics, and we see incompetence everywhere, right? You know, what is the alternative model? Churchill talked about this. He said democracy is the worst form of government except for all of its alternatives. All democracies have something in common. It's the only system of government that has ever existed in all of the history of humanity where the rights of the individual are supreme and are higher than the state.
Right.
In every other system, the state is supreme over the individual.
That's right.
Right. And this idea in our society, right? And this is what makes America unique too, compared to other societies that were unjust. In America, for much of its history, has been an unjust society to huge groups of Americans. But those groups only sought inclusion under the majesty and the perfection of the idea that we are all created equal. In over 244 years, the mean of that idea has moved to, in our shared view, that means everybody. It means Black people, it means Hispanic, it means gay people. Every American should be free, should be equal. Martin Luther King went to the Lincoln Memorial on August 28, 1963. He said to collect on a promissory note, just to be included in this idea. And this is the fight. They have opted out of belief and faith in democracy, that over 1,200,000 Americans have made blood sacrifices to preserve and protect over the course of our history. And they're doing it for a decrepit, delusional, autocratic wannabe. And the terrifying thing is, when you look at the 40,000 votes over 3 states that separated a Biden victory from a loss, when you look at the 0.25% that separated Purdue winning in Georgia versus a runoff, when you look at the thinness of the margin, the delusional guy is their front runner for president in 2024. And everybody should wake up to this reality. I'll tell you how he gets back on Twitter. It's the day he announces his candidacy.
Yep.
I'll tell you how he gets back on Facebook. It's the day he announces his candidacy. You know what his best strategy is to inoculate himself from criminal prosecution? It's to announce his candidacy.
Run for office.
And he is the leader, indisputably so. And these people genuflect to his every insanity. And that is the story. And that is why we're not out of line to say, who the hell is he saying that to? And the deficiency in the facts presented to the American people about the danger because of the transactional relationships and the transactional access journalism is a real danger to the country.
You know, Steve, I think that's so spot on. It's something we've talked about a lot, is that, you know, as an institution, the press is one of the few things outlined in the First Amendment where we give them a special set of protections under law, that there's a sort of trade-off that should be made there, that they should be fiercely independent. And there's a cultural rot, in my view, in the Washington, D.C. sort of media culture. Not every reporter, not every person involved, but so many of them reach a certain level where it is a trade-off, where they will pretend there's normalcy when there is not. They will pretend there's sanity when there is insanity. They will pretend there is just doing business when there is lavish corruption. And I think there are a lot of people that have inside Trump's world that have learned to play that system very effectively, sort of in a parasitic way.
Yeah, for sure. For sure they have.
Well, I think that's obvious because we saw the way Trump was handled in the first time around when he ran. I blame a lot of the media for legitimizing him. It was a spectacle, but they gave him billions in airtime, free airtime, right? And then it was Les Moonves, former head of CBS, who said, you know, Trump is bad for our democracy, but great for ratings. You know, that right there showed you kind of why people don't like mainstream media and some of the culpability. And I think that when we have stories like this, you still have some of the same mistakes being made again in the way that they cover him. They need to be covering him. If this were anyone else, the way Trump behaves, they would be calling for, you know, for him to be committed, or like for an intervention to happen with his family members.
Baker acted,
like,
as we say
right,
in Florida.
Baker acted. That's right. You know, like there needs to be an intervention, or maybe we start looking at the home in Florida for him. But they still treat him as though he's on the same footing as former presidents. He's not. He's not. He's a twice impeached loser president who fomented a freaking violent insurrection against the United States. He is a traitor to our Constitution and continues to spew vitriol and disinformation and dangerous rhetoric that is an existential threat to our country. Why doesn't the media treat him that way?
Well, let me say two things in reaction to that. And I don't want to be ungenerous about this, and I don't mean this by way of exaggeration. Off the top of my head, and for sure, so we say this, for sure there will be another example or two, but I don't think there will be another 3 or 4 more. I think in the 4 years of his presidency, who gave Donald Trump a tough interview? Chris Wallace did it. Jonathan Swan did it. And Savannah Guthrie did it.
Yeah,
that's right.
And off the top of my head, I can't think of another person that asked him a question to get at some of the most core and fundamental issues around a range of subjects, right? It was just wasted space where Trump manhandled, where Trump manhandled the interview. And so when you look at the totality of all of this, the reality is, and I can make the argument that at this hour, despite his loss, he remains the most powerful man in America. And let me tell you why I say that. He's a man without morals or conscience, and he's a man who has the power to kill with a whisper, with a word. Joe Biden won't exercise or abuse that type of power, but Trump will for selfish aims. And so we've already crossed the Rubicon. We should pay attention. When our elected officials tell us around an impeachment vote that we are intimidated and afraid for our lives, wake up. You're not living in a free country anymore. When the people's representatives are intimidated, when you're intimidated by threat with regard to support for a candidacy, when government is used as a weapon, all of these things are things that Trump did. And if he should take power again in this country, we won't have another election. There are so many lessons from the 1930s that are important. We talk about this in the culture mostly because people make stupid analogies. Steve Schwartzman goes out and says something like, well, my rates went up 2% on my taxes. Now I know what it was like to be in Auschwitz, right? Like morally offensive, right? Adolf Hitler was absolutely obsessed with taking power legally. Legally.
That's right.
Legally. And when he did, it took 6 months to completely snuff out democracy. And he did it with a high watermark of 37% of the vote, which was achieved 2 years before he took power. The point here is, in a binary system, the fear of the far left, which is what the Republican strategy is in the culture war that they are waging, a message to the middle class and to disaffected Republican voters and independents, right, is that those people over here that you voted with in this last election against Trump, they hate you. They hate your identity. They hate your family's history. They're going to take from you the things that you've built and you've earned. And this is always the strategy. The imagined fear of the far left who will take, conjured from the thin air of the fever swamps where the autocrats dwell, that gets people in a two-way race to say, look at one extreme side that they've been made to be afraid of, and then look for protection from the sheep in wolf's clothing, which is what Trump is. And the wolf in sheep's clothing, rather.
I'm not judging.
We have a dangerous situation in the country because of the inability to properly assess the danger and reality, which starts with this. He's in charge, lock, stock, and barrel of one of America's two political parties that no longer, as a functional matter, believes in the American idea and the ideal, right? And it went away in 6 months.
Right. That's right.
And I think, Steve, we've talked about this a lot. One of the things that we're at the Lincoln Project, we're keeping a huge eye on is the emergence of these national populists that, you know, during Trump's first couple of years, they pretended, oh, we're still the same old Republican Party. But now we have people out there like J.D. Vance running for U.S. Senate in Ohio, who is saying we're going to use the power of the state, of the nation state, which you and I both know is fraught with meaning, to punish and destroy our enemies. I mean, that to me is a remarkable, you know, Marco Rubio saying we're going to force companies to do things for the good of the national order. I mean, I guess that sounded better in the original German, but you know, these things are an emergent threat, don't you think?
Absolutely, they are. What J.D. Vance said, that the first duty of conservatives is to oppose and, if necessary, to destroy the opponents of the values and the virtues of the American nation state.
Mm-hmm.
Full stop. Now, coming back journalistically, might that conjure someone who was celebrated on every network show, from Oprah to the Today Show, be asked a question? What do you mean by destroy? Do you mean to kill?
Mm-hmm.
Do you mean to confiscate property, to imprison and re-education camps? What do you mean? What are the virtues and values of the nation state? Now, in the end, nation states don't have virtues and values. In a democratic republic, virtues and values are vested in individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The idea that's so unique in this country, that our founders ventured into the area of what is the meaning of life. And they posited it was the pursuit of happiness.
That's right.
The injustice in the country was everybody should get to pursue happiness, not just white Protestant landowning men. But that was a different age 240 years ago. And if you look at how far we have journeyed, right, in 100 years' time, from the Tulsa race massacre, we should understand that though long ago, these events have occurred in the span of a single human lifetime. And our obligation is to perfect the union. I think so many people seem to have no ability to comprehend a lot of issues of our time, yet seem to have the arrogance of perfect clarity about everything that happened 200 years ago. The reality is that the country is inherently flawed because people are flawed. And it was the first country of the people, by the people, for the people. Now, though, at least I thought we had a broad consensus in the country, and we certainly have a sizable majority that believes this is for everybody. But there's a great fight. And what we have to do, if you believe in democracy, we have to win 4 elections in a row to bring this to submission. We have to win the presidential election in 24, 28, and 32. And by 2036, maybe it's Dwayne Johnson, right? Maybe it's someone outside politics. Maybe it's a winner who looks at the white supremacists, the white nationalists, the people that Lindsey Graham have said, these new Trump voters that have come in, the guy with the Camp Auschwitz shirts, this element that teems with violence, well, we can't win without them. Morally, these people deserve repudiation. No political party that stands in coalition with them, it can be a moral party. In fact, standing with them is evidence of their immorality in a democratic republic. And their embrace of conspiracies and lies is the front line of the great fight. Where is the fight? The fight is at the place where the lie can first be met with the truth. And that's why it is so important to talk about nonstop and forever about the insanity that has been mainstreamed and the violence that was manifested, because we will not have a better warning sign. That's it. We don't get a better one. That's the last warning.
The intrusion of these forces, of the QAnon people, the conspiracy people, you know, the 3%ers, the Proud Boys, you know, you're seeing that everywhere infect the party. You've got in Arizona, Proud Boys being put up for state Republican committee positions because they want to ensure that they're going to do it. In California, what was a Republican Party is now running a recall effort against Gavin Newsom, run by a bunch of people who have decided that being in bed with the QAnon folks and the Proud Boys is a great strategy in California.
Right.
You know,
look at what happened in Huntington Beach with Tito Ortiz, the MMA guy.
These people
nuts.
They have spread this. They have spread this insanity out, and they're trying to say, well, we can't win without them. We got to keep them around. This is an argument, folks, that doesn't lead to a good place.
No.
Once the people in your party can blackmail you to accept their craziness, you don't have a party anymore. You've got a cult.
Not only craziness, but lies, things that are just completely untrue and that go completely against the Constitution that you swore an oath to. That is a huge problem. But we are not going to solve the world's problems in this block. Maybe we'll solve them in the next block. So stay tuned. We're going to take a quick break, and we have more to come. We also have our new Lincoln Project ad coming, and I know Steve will have some things to say because there's lots of history in it. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Something's wrong with Donald Trump. He's shaky, weak, trouble speaking, trouble walking. So why aren't we talking about this? And why isn't the press covering Trump's secretive midnight run to Walter Reed Medical Center? Why do so many reporters who cover the White House pretend they can't see Trump's decline? The most powerful office in the world needs more than a weak, unfit, shaky president. Trump doesn't have the strength to lead, nor the character to admit it. We're not doctors, but we're not blind. It's time we talk about this. Trump is not well.
And welcome back to the breakdown. Our good friend and co-founder of the Lincoln Project, Steve Schmidt, is still with us. And Steve, we're going to premiere our latest Lincoln Project ad right now exclusively tonight because the fight against fascism matters now more than ever, similar to what we were just discussing. Let's take a look.
Who is Antifa? They stormed the beaches of Normandy, parachuted into the French countryside, and gave their lives to face down and fight back against fascism. They took down Nazi machine gun nests, tore apart the Third Reich's strongholds, liberated concentration camps. Anywhere Antifa saw fascism, they fearlessly and relentlessly annihilated it. Fascism was defeated because of patriots like these, proud Americans who knew that the fight against fascists was not simply a battle between opposing nations. It was a war against inhumanity. A war we still fight today. Anti-fascism. It's not a cable news talking point. It's an American ideal that should be memorialized because it was paid for in blood.
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Man, that's a powerful ad. D-Day's coming up on June 6th, thus the theme that we saw there. Rick, talk a little bit about that ad, and then Steve, you will get your reaction as well.
You know, part of it, Tara, is an honest sort of like rising sense of just disgust with the way that fascism has been mainstreamed and normalized in this country, where you've got the guys like Josh Hawley and J.D. Vance, who are out there basically using the playbook from the 1930s in Europe. And, you know, I think it's important that you don't throw the anti-fascist phrase out there and let it become a pejorative with a fake sort of talking point from the agitprop machine of Fox and others. That ad will make Tucker's head explode, of course. But it's important, I think, to remember that an opposition to fascism shaped our greatest generation. It was one of the great moral undertakings of our history to overthrow Adolf Hitler and overthrow Nazism and fascism in Europe, it was one of the most important things we've ever done as a nation. It shaped our destiny for 3 or 4 generations now. And as those people are fading from our memory and our lives, and there are very few of them left, they will not last another decade. It's important to remember what they did, and they did it not in the name of conquest or territory. They did it in an effort to overthrow fascism, which they recognized at the time was a profound evil in the world.
Indeed, Steve.
D-Day is a day that is always worth a remembrance of, the beginning of the liberation of France and Europe by British, Canadian, American, Polish, all the forces of the United Nations. It is one of the most significant endeavors by complication, by size, by scale, in all of human history. And it is one of the most just days. It's a day of extraordinary heroism and extraordinary bravery. And let's talk about the cheapness and the cynicism of the political attack made against Kamala Harris, our vice president, by Kevin McCarthy and others for her wishing the American people a good long weekend. The bloodiest beach on D-Day was Omaha Beach. And if you go to Omaha Beach in the summer on a nice day, you will see exactly what Dwight Eisenhower commented to Walter Cronkite about in 1964 when they returned for the 20th anniversary. And what they saw were families on the beach and children playing. The mines and the barriers and the guns and the barbed wire were gone. And you think about this place, and Eisenhower said this is what they fought and died and gave their lives for the freedom and joy, to destroy the slavery that was represented. And if you go above that beach, you'll find the American Cemetery, which is, if I could send every American to a place to contemplate the meaning of this country, it would be very, very high on my list. But when you go there, there are many things of note. The 34 pairs of brothers buried there, father and son next to each other, the Medal of Honor recipients, one of whom was the son of a president of the United States who insisted as a brigadier general that he be the first man off the first landing craft on Utah Beach, where he displayed valor that led to his award of the Medal of Honor, the only father to have a son who landed in the first wave. Teddy Roosevelt's grandson, Quentin Roosevelt, named for Teddy Roosevelt's second son who was killed in the First World War. Those two brothers are buried there next to each other. But the thing you will notice the most is how pristine it is. How there is not a blade of grass out of place. There is not a centimeter of asymmetry on the alignment of the crosses and the stars of David, many of which say, "Here lies an American soldier known but to God." Every one of those graves faces west, back out across the Atlantic Ocean towards American shores that they would never return from. If you think about the movie Private Ryan, in the scene where the Matt Damon character as an old man reflects on the promise that he had made to Captain Ryan to lead a good life, to have made the sacrifices that saved his life worth it, to live a life worthy of those sacrifices. Do our politicians meet that standard? What contempt those men must have for these cowards who have betrayed, in the most fundamental level, the ideas and ideals of this country, which have been fought for, bled for for 14 generations. And here in this moment, in this time, in the name of Donald Trump, at the end of the lifespan of the people who fought in this war, the great test between democracy and autocracy comes at us again. And before I end my filibuster, I'll just close with this very brief story, which is that Franklin Roosevelt was the visionary and the architect of the world that we have lived in for 70 some odd years. That vision was argued about mostly on the periphery, but sustained even through giant misjudgments and tragedies like the Vietnam War and the wars of the Middle East over the last 20 years. Roosevelt had said to his friend Mackenzie King, the Canadian Prime Minister, that his ambition wasn't, as he talked about this US-led liberal global order where democracy would be ascendant, that he knew it wouldn't last forever. He said his ambition was that it would last for as long as every American who was alive on the day the war was won was still alive. And here we are. And we forget at our peril. And one of the things I say all the time, we talk about as a group all the time, and the thing that scares me the most, I do not know that if a democratic republic can survive without a capacity for memory. The ending of the peaceful transition of the power in this country, blood-soaked and murderous, after 200 years, that happened 4 months ago, 5 months ago.
That's right.
It's not time to move on because it defines our present and it will write our future and it will wreck our fucking country at a level that is beyond my ability to describe.
Let's grab a couple questions from the audience.
Yeah, because nobody says it better than Steve Schmidt, right?
Nobody.
All right, you're up, Rick.
Is this delusional claim that Trump will be reinstated to the White House in August really a signal to his cult to prepare to stage another January 6th style incursion? That's from Julie Hunt. Julie, I don't have an answer for you on that, but one of the things that I've emphasized in the last couple of weeks is this. Unless you have punishment and consequence for people who plot a coup and that coup fails, it's just a trial run. They'll be back. It may be this, it may be something else, but they have now integrated political violence into their ethos. It will be a part of what they do and who they are going forward. It will be an era in this country that we have not seen since the Civil War and Reconstruction.
That's right. I don't know what it's going to take for these people to wake up. Next up.
As a retired combat veteran, how am I supposed to take Flynn's latest comments? I'm infuriated. Do they think it's going to go well? Steve, we'll let you take that one on the Mike Flynn comment.
This guy.
Well, the military has the ability to do something about this. It's outrageous behavior from a retired lieutenant general. There's no ability to make his extreme rhetoric happen. Therefore, it's protected speech. He's a nut. He was the national security advisor to the president of the United States. This is just evidence of the instability, the insanity, the wretchedness of the people that Trump had around him. But every autocratic movement is made up of these marginalized losers, right? Who, for whatever reason, are overcome by their grievances and resentments. There's a lot of 4-star officers that'll say Michael Flynn was one of the premier intelligence officers of his generation, but he's clearly had a breakdown of some sort, whether it's fueled by what toxic mix of vices, I don't know. But the line here and the intimations for violence from a retired lieutenant general, the United States Army has the ability to return him to active duty, court-martial him, and reduce him in grade, which I think would be a wonderful message to send.
We've said it here.
First Class Flynn has a different ring to it, doesn't it?
Yeah. We've said it
They
here.
could
But
take him down to colonel.
Right.
I think that's what the rule is.
Like Colonel Sanders, maybe. But the Pentagon is already, there's a story this week that said the Pentagon has no appetite to do anything about this, which I think is unfortunate. They really should. It's probably the Biden administration saying they don't want to make it seem like they're taking retaliatory action against their political opposition. But sometimes you know that being too nice thing doesn't work. And in this case, Michael Flynn should really pay a price. He's a disgrace to the uniform. I think we have one more, Rick.
All right. How can the authoritarian right's tactic of accusing their opposition of being guilty of anything they themselves are actually guilty of be countered more effectively? For example, Tucker Carlson accusing the Biden administration of wanting segregation for vaxxed, non-vaxxed. You know, Dan, it's a great question, and it is just part of this reality bubble that they live in on that side of the political equation now. You can't necessarily talk them out of stupid, crazy shit. But you do have to keep reminding your own people that stupid, crazy shit, just because it's said on Fox News or in somebody's Facebook group, is not reality. You know, affirming a reality over and over again, asserting reality, asserting with conviction is a vital element of how we communicate and how we think Americans can communicate in this time of great risk.
Let me say something else about that, to your point, Rick. And just because someone of color might come on and be a token and do a shuck and jive dance to make their masters happy on Fox News, that also doesn't mean that the analogy is an accurate one. It was one of the most asinine things I've ever seen, to actually sit there and try to make an argument that that asking people for vaccination, proof of vaccination, is somehow equivalent to Jim Crow and segregation. That is the stupidest fucking shit I've ever heard. And I'm so sick and tired of people like those people that go on Fox News that do these shuck and jives just because they're people of color, that they're given legitimacy. The level of ignorance is beyond tolerable. And yet these people continue to get platforms. They are just as guilty as the rest of them for putting out this propaganda bullshit. And they do it for attention and for money. And shame on every single one of them that does it. And you know who I'm talking about.
I know who you're talking about.
All right. On that note, I'm taking the segment home tonight. Steve,
do it.
We appreciate you coming on. Do you have any last words? And brevity is the soul of wit right now. I'm giving it to you. You get the last word.
I just say that it's a moment that requires presence, right? You know, to people that are watching, you talk to your friends, it's wake up time, right? The danger is all around us. It's real. We live in the greatest, despite all its flaws, democratic republic in the history of the world, and we're on the edge of losing it. We cannot lose another election to these people, and Democrats are not in a strong position in this 22 cycle, despite Biden's success, for a lot of different reasons we can talk about on a different night. The threat is real, the danger is here, and we have to practice citizenship, all of us together collectively, to fight it back. And we can't fight it back. There are more of us than them, but they are dangerous. And for people who are scared of them, they should be scared of them. For people that are nervous that we could lose elections to them, they should be nervous that we could lose elections to them. A lot of people say to me, you know, when we do these events, make me feel better. I'm not here to make anybody feel better. I'm here to ask you to fight back against this. Individually, do whatever you can, wherever you can do it, to push back against the insanity that threatens to take away the greatest inheritance we give our children, which is their birthright, the freedom of being an American citizen in a country that, despite all of our flaws today, where everybody should be treated equally.
That's right. And as Ronald Reagan said, it's not passed along in the bloodstream, it has to be fought for, which is what we're doing here every day at the Lincoln Project. And we thank all of you who support us. Steve, we thank you for joining us. You know, you're welcome back anytime. And everyone, please don't forget to keep sending us your questions at #AskTheBreakdown and leave us a voicemail. If you haven't already, leave us a good message and we'll play it on the show next week. All right, Steve, we'll see you around, buddy.
Take care, Tara.
Thanks, brother.
All right.
All right, man. I always feel smarter after we have a Steve Schmidt show.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Nobody says it
100%.
like him, man. I'm telling you, he's a character.
That is the
listen,
damn truth.
Speaking of characters, in our last segment tonight, stay tuned for this, folks. We're going to take a quick break, but we asked you guys to send in some of the hilarious names for this stupid ass tour that Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene are on. And we're going to reveal the answers, some of the answers you guys have sent in, and our names for the tour when we come back. We'll be right back.
We can look back in a time in history where people were told to wear a gold star, and they were definitely treated like second-class citizens, so much so that they were put in trains and taken to gas chambers in Nazi Germany. And this is exactly the type of abuse that Nancy Pelosi is talking about.
In no way, shape, or form did I compare mask mandates or forced vaccination or vaccine passports to the Holocaust.
And we are back here on the breakdown. All right, Rick. So we asked the audience, and they have not been disappointed.
They have come through on fire.
Yes, and our team has told us this. I just want everyone to know that we have not seen the tweets that they've pulled for us. So our reactions are fresh and new, just like yours. So let's jog your memories first about what this freaking freak show is, and then we'll get to the names.
I've never talked to a veteran that said he signed up to serve our country so that America could become a socialist nation. But we're not the party of violence. You see, we're not the Democrat Party that supported and funded Antifa and BLM riots all over the country. We're not the party that tore down monuments all year long. You see, we're the people that loves our history. We love our Constitution. We love our freedoms. This is what the American people want, because it's people over politicians. And the only way we're going to do that is with America first.
And I don't know a soldier that ever signed up to volunteer to serve this country for an authoritarian country. So she can kick rocks with that. I can't stand her. All right. They are the gift that keeps on giving, and we will continue to make fun of them. So let's do the big reveal.
All right, here we go.
All right. Greenie in the Pain.
Greenie in the Pain. Okay. All right.
Okay,
all right.
I get it.
The Gaetz Green Show should be called the Gang Green Tour.
Gaetz Green Double Domestic Terrorist Tag Team Tour. Oh my God, say that 3 times fast.
Right? It's Mad Maddie and Marge. One night only, because tomorrow's not looking so good. Sunday, Sunday, Sunday.
Nice. Boris and Natasha tour.
Gaetz and Green Tour. How about the end of Democracy in America tour? Couldn't think of anything clever, but that's their goal. Sadly,
that's true.
Yeah.
I know. Gaetz and Green equals insurrectionists on the move. Beavis and Butthead to America. Yes, I love the 90s references.
The GHG Get Brainwashed with Us tour. Q and Nonsense.
Q and Nonsense. That's a good hashtag. Lunapalooza. Yes, Leo Hancock.
Well done. Well done.
Nice. What is it? Lunapalooza?
Lunapalooza.
Lunapalooza.
Not bad.
I don't know.
Lee Hancock with Lunapalooza. Solid work, sir or ma'am. So
we love our audience. We appreciate you guys. So you want to hear what Rick and I know what Rick and I came up with. You ready?
Do it.
All right. And now the big reveal. Henceforth, it shall be called. Do we have to show it again?
Fools.
Show it again.
Show it up. Bring it up. There we go.
The Between Two Fools tour. That was mine. That's what I came up with, kind of on the fly. Because anyone who's seen Between Two Ferns, I hope you guys get it. But what a bunch of jackasses, man. I just can't. Anyway, thank you to our crew for coming up with that, and for our viewers for sending in such great names. Keep sending them in, because we like to hear from you. You guys are clever. All right.
We want to thank everybody for watching tonight and every night. You know, we've gotten we took our little break. The audience has been coming back to make this destination viewing again. We love you guys for tuning in, whether you're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, wherever you're watching tonight. We are, again, very grateful for your attention, and hope that we can provide you guys with some wisdom and some fun and some fighting spirit here every night we're on. And we look forward to talking to you guys again next Tuesday.
That's right. We hope we can add a little levity to all of this too, because laughter does good like medicine. And if you want to hear more, we have introduced something new called Lunch with Lincoln, which is something that the Lincoln Project will be doing. It starts tomorrow. The newest Lincoln Project series, Lunch with Lincoln, starts on Facebook, I believe. It's streaming on Facebook, yes. And it will be Reed Galen. And if you want more of Steve Schmidt, you get more Steve Schmidt tomorrow at noon. And it will air every Friday at noon, so with different guests. So make sure you check that out, and check out the podcast everywhere you get your podcasts. We will see you next week.
Thanks, folks.
Have a great